Dybala, touch there from Ramsey and Dybala! Oh, it's a thrilling goal from the substitute, Paulo Dybala.
The Calcio Guys is a weekly podcast by Adriano Donardo, Gianni Della Colli, and myself, Nicholas Di Giovanni. We want to bring Calcio back to its roots in our communities and share stories from around the world about why we're passionate about the beautiful game. You can listen to us anywhere where you listen to your podcasts, including Spreaker, Google Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, iHeart Radio, and Mixcloud. Give us your opinion on social media at The Calcio Guys on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. The intro song is Fireworks by Jahzzar. What a rough day across Italy, across the world. Monday, March 9th, Adriano Donardo, Nicholas Di Giovanni, we're recording this podcast, Calcio Guys, and a couple hours ago, Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte said that all activity was going to be suspended across the country, Zona Rossa pretty much across the country, prevention against COVID-19, coronavirus, and that includes suspension of the Serie A until at least April 3rd. At this point, we've been talking about it for the past 3 weeks pretty much on this podcast. At this point, there is nothing to add. It's thoughts and prayers with everybody involved. We both have family there. We both have elderly family there, and it is a worrying time right now. That's how I feel. I'm thinking about my family, my dad's aunts and uncles, my mom's uncles there. I have no problem with the Serie A being suspended at all.
You know what? I think, like you said, this is something that you can never prepare for. It's something that has affected not only people that are close to us, but people that are close to all kinds of individuals across the world. Unfortunately, now we got the devastating news that Italy, Zona Rossa, like you said, for the whole country. We start off with just the north, and you go down south, maybe you're a bit safer. But now, everywhere you turn, there's nothing going on, so you have to stay in your house. And like you said, thoughts and prayers. Definitely, I think fans don't even know what to feel anymore, just because the different news has passed us through social media and just through the news day after day. And I think it's kind of came to the point where it is what it is. Like we've said multiple times on the podcast, safety first. Whatever happens later happens. I believe there was a quote from the Prime Minister: there's no time for soccer. And I think he nailed it on the head over there. I think it's just the right thing to do. Take it one day at a time, and we'll see how all this pans out.
Yeah, originally, we thought the idea of closed doors games was kind of a good idea, but that's also when the virus wasn't at its height that it is now in Italy. And, this weekend when the players came out and played those 6 games behind closed doors, you could just sense that obviously something's off. There's no fans, right? But you could tell even sometimes with the players as if they knew the seriousness of the situation. And I think everyone on social media just kind of knew that after this match day, we weren't really going to see Serie A until for a little while. But on the podcast, we're going to take it business as usual as much as we can. We still have 6 games to go over. We're going to have Frank Crivello join us later from the Serie A Sitdown. So second guest from the Serie A Sitdown that we have this year after Richard. Yeah, that we had back in September.
Great guest.
Back in
live
September.
In studio
in CJLO.
This time Frank on air now. But like you said, I think it was just something where you just go to realize these were probably the 6 games of Calcio that were probably the weirdest to watch. No fans, and it just goes to show you how much the fans add to the game of football, soccer, Calcio, whatever you want to call it. It was just, you heard Conte screaming or Sarri yelling or more than you heard anything else. So it was a weird thing, and I think like many people maybe quote-unquote joked that we wouldn't see Serie A for a little while. I think they were right, and I think, like we said, it's the right thing to do.
I need you to listen to this clip that I got from the Juve Inter game. I need you to listen carefully, Adriano. So put those earbuds in.
All right, I'm going under.
I need you to listen carefully. I'm going to play it. If you're listening at home, on the bus, on the train, put those earphones to the max, because you have to listen carefully and try to guess what this is.
Brozovic and Bonucci with a difference of opinion.
Just an arm from Brozovic goes across Bonucci. Certainly was a foul, but both looking for the ball.
Poke of the elbow, wasn't it, from Marcelo Brozovic?
Yeah, normally you know when it's a swinging elbow, that's when players certainly have been naughty, but nothing too much doing there.
Did you hear anything in particular?
You got me stunned. I don't even know what I was looking for.
It was besides the commentary.
Yeah,
obviously.
You heard a lot of talking, screaming. I don't know what was being said exactly.
It sounded like an airplane going over the stadium.
Was it?
That's what it sounded like.
If that's the case, that's crazy.
That when I heard that was around the 22nd minute of Juve Inter. When I heard that, I was like, okay, this is different. But regardless, it was a good game, Juve Inter. It was a pretty good game. And you know what? You could tell the players, obviously they knew the situation. But at the same time, once that ball gets kicked off, the competitiveness is going to come out right away. Because these players, they play the sport because they want to be the best. They want to beat the best teams. You know, sure, they do it for the fans, but obviously, they played most of their lives until they played professionals with no fans. So it was interesting to see that dynamic still, especially in a derby match like Juve Inter. But what a fantastic game by Juventus! Complete turnaround against Lyon. I know we didn't talk about it last week against Lyon, but that was a pretty bad performance, and a lot of people are already starting the Sadi out chants on Twitter. Exactly what happened a year ago with Allegri against Atletico. I was one of them who took part in that. Different situation though. Allegri was in his fifth season with the team, and Sadi's in his first. But you know what? Sadi has said that the team plays better in training than they play in games, and you kind of saw that on Sunday, almost as if it was a training game. And the midfield. I've never seen them play like this since the Allegri days. Cuadrado and Alexandro are doing a fantastic job bombing up the wings to help out the midfield and the forwards. And then at the end of the game, when Bonucci and De Ligt got home, they emptied their pockets. They had Lukaku and Martinez in them.
In their pockets, for sure. I mean, a big dud for Lukaku, for Lautaro Martinez. These are two guys that have been one of the better duos in Serie A. Two fantastic strikers. They were definitely held in check. A bit surprising, but at the same time, I mean, it's not expected, but at the same time, you know, these are two good teams, and I just felt like in the Milan Genoa game, Inter was still going through the motions more than Juve was, and I mean, when you have, we said it time and time again, when you have a guy like Dybala or Douglas Costa or whoever it may be coming off the bench, you have that luxury to take those types of players onto the pitch at the 50th, 60th minute. You have a good team, and you have a lot of depth. And
Inter brought on Eriksen though.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel it's still a step above, and I just feel that Dybala's spark of brilliance. I don't know, man. Some people I think are still banging on him just going on his left foot, but it's now a couple of times where he's cut it across, put it on his right foot, and then done some sort of move. So he totally turned Ashley Young inside out, and I think he deserved all that. And I don't know, it's going to be tough to see like where they go forward, especially in the Champions League. But right now, currently as it stands in first, we'll see how that plays out. There's a lot of talk about that, especially with the season in limbo. So we'll definitely see how that pans out. But I think a merited win in an awkward game for the Derby d'Italia this weekend.
Still going here. Blaise Matuidi to pull it back for Ronaldo and Ramsey. Huge goal in the context of this Serie A season. Dybala. Touch there from Ramsey and Dybala! Oh, it's a thrilling goal from the substitute, Paulo Dybala. And Juventus now surely have the win.
I know you had a problem with that surely have the win comment by the commentator after that Dybala goal.
Listen, I think we've said it time and time again, or just in sports in general. You watch the NFL, you watch the NHL, NBA, whatever you like, and Calcio's not just the same. The commentators jumping to conclusions way too early. Albeit Juve, merited the win, fine. They got the 3 points and everything, and they got the 2-0 win. But after 65 minutes, there's still a lot of soccer to be played, and I think it was a little bit premature. But at the end of the day, Inter didn't come out to play, so I think it was, I guess, a bit more merited, and I guess I eat my words this time.
Yeah, you could make those comments when the other team actually comes back, I guess, and we've seen that many times.
Especially in the Serie A.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to skip over the Milan talk. We're going to save that for Frank later. A couple of upsets this weekend.
Yeah.
Spal over Parma. Udinese, Fiorentina 0-0. Boring game. Sassuolo beat Brescia 3-0. That pretty expected. But for me, the biggest upset of the weekend was Sampdoria over Verona.
Here's De Paoli, all the yellow shirts flooding back, and it's Quagliarella gets onto the end of that De Paoli pass and slots past Silvestri to give Sampdoria the equalizer on 77 minutes.
Quagliarella, 2 goals. We haven't said his name on this podcast pretty much. Obviously, we've mentioned it this year, but last year I felt like he was the talk of the podcast. Every other week he tied Batistusta's record with goals in 11 straight games, which Ronaldo just finished that record. He couldn't beat it. So there's 3 guys tied at that record. But Sam, what a performance! 2-1, and obviously they've had the extended break. If I'm not mistaken, they were one of the teams that missed 2 games. If I'm not mistaken, I'll look that up in a second. But that it's huge for the relegation battle.
No, absolutely. I think it wasn't easy, especially going down due to a listed own goal by Aldero. They went down quite early to Verona, and I think it took some time, but Sam finally got onto the board with Quagliarella, and he got a brace after all. And I think it was a merited win for Samp. They've been, I feel, both them and Genoa have been in a bit of a slump and kind of near the bottom or in the bottom 3 teams. So to kind of get this win under their belt, a sigh of relief. Again, it's hard to say now with everything being suspended, and we'll see where things go forward from here. But hopefully, if things do come back to normal, this is something that they can build on and go game after game with expectations, high expectations, and results to come, because I think they're a team that deserves it. And I don't know, we say it time and time again with Quagliarella, he ages like fine wine. It's honestly amazing to see. Obviously a big slump from last season. I don't even think he's cracked 10 goals yet this season. But listen, he's the team over there at Samp. We saw him firsthand. And like you just mentioned, while we were just off air, seeing these stadiums, like you said, the Ferraris and San Siro empty, when we were there with almost 80,000 or 70,000 at San Siro. I believe, what is it at the Ferraris, maybe 30-ish?
25 maybe?
30,000 that we had over there, and to see it empty was a bit strange, but at the end of the day, it is what it is, and hopefully the teams can go forward from here.
37,000, by the way. Wow, there's really not much to talk about. We got Champions League coming up tomorrow, so we're recording this Monday night. Atalanta plays tomorrow, Juve and Napoli against Barcelona. Next week, again, that's a situation we don't know 100% what's going to be happening with Juve, because it's supposed to be played in Italy, but sporting activity is supposed to be canceled.
In
but
Italy.
Does it apply to UEFA?
Reports are no.
Yeah, exactly.
At the moment, reports are that Champions League, Europa League, those games will be continue to be played behind closed doors, or whatever doors you want to call it. But so far that's what it is. But like we've seen with this whole virus, it's very unexpected. Things can change on the fly, and we've seen it, day after day, week after week with this virus. So, I guess cross your fingers. I don't know what else to really say. I just, you have to take it day by day, and it's the only way to go forward.
So Atalanta, they're going to be in Valencia tomorrow. That's going to be a closed door game, by the way.
Yeah,
in
that was
Valencia
from the get go.
Dortmund and PSG closed doors, and that's
France is picking up some cases over there. Yeah,
is it?
But
is it in? It's in Paris, I believe. Yeah, it's in Paris.
Yeah.
So and again, the UEFA, they just got to be smart, right? As we've talked about. But we've mentioned enough pretty much about this.
It's tough.
Let's skip right away to our yellow card, red card, and MVP of the week. The other games there really isn't much to talk about because Spal, beat Parma 1-0 on a penalty.
Catania
in Parma. Sassuolo 3-0.
Big game
we mentioned
this today.
We're gonna mention Chicho, I'm sure, in our MVP.
Yeah,
one of us is gonna have to take him.
Absolutely.
One of us is gonna have to take him.
Honorable mention, but yeah, absolutely, beautiful gesture.
So let's go MVP. You go first.
Well, I was gonna give it to
Chicho.
to Chicho Caputo. I was gonna throw in Patania in there too. He's had some good performances as of late. He's been scoring all kinds. We mentioned it time and time again. He's with one of the worst teams in the Serie A this season, and he's proven quite a bit. I believe he's in double-digit figures for goals, and he's kind of led that team. It's unfortunate for Spal fans that he is going to be leaving in the summer to go to Napoli, but I think that's a big plus for Napoli. I think it's another guy that they can get in the forward position that can bag in a lot of goals. He's a big physical guy. He's still young. I still think he still has some stuff to prove. But for this week, for his performances, not even just this week, as of late, Petagna definitely gets a mention for me. And then as we posted before, you must have seen it on social media today, after scoring his first goal, I believe it was, Chicho Caputo held up a sign saying everything will be okay. Well, the translation, everything will be okay, stay at home. And I think just in a time where it's a devastating time in the country of Italy where we're so connected to.
A lot of uncertainty.
A lot of uncertainty. I feel that was just a beautiful, beautiful gesture by Chicho Caputo, holding up that sign and just giving some positivity to this such not positive situation that's going on in Italy. And we can't say enough good things. We love him at the show. You love him for the celebration, but this gesture tops it all off for me.
He's a great character.
And I think
he's a fans player.
Yeah, he's like
he does it for the fans.
Yeah, he's like, and there was no fans today, I imagine.
Yeah,
so,
he did it for the camera.
He's a man's man. He bags a lot of goals, and I don't know, man. I would like to see him.
If there's a Euros, I hope he makes the team. That's a whole
Caputo and Petagna in.
That's opening up a whole other can of words.
But definitely this week, as I said, Petagna and Chicho Caputo definitely get my nods for MVP of the week.
Unfortunately, I don't have clips for either.
No, it's okay.
Sassuolo, they played this afternoon. I was at work, so I didn't have time.
I didn't get to see it either.
I completely forgot about the game. Honestly, I didn't.
It was a 1:30 game.
Yeah, 1:30
or 1 o'clock game.
And around 2:00, our servers went down at work, so I had nothing to do for about 10-15 minutes. I went for a walk because it was nice. If I would have remembered, I would have just put on the game.
Yeah, beautiful game.
But okay, my MVP. I'll go with Quagliarella, just because we haven't given it to him in a while. 2 goals, one on open play, and the other on a penalty, and gave his team the win. Yellow cards.
You can take it away.
Okay, so mine's it's kind of let's just put a positive. Let's put some positivity into this show.
Positive on a negative.
No, not on a negative.
Okay.
Let's just put some positivity. Let's just have fun with this one.
All right.
North America, we moved our clocks ahead this weekend.
Yeah, we did.
And
everybody's confused.
And Italy didn't. So normally, North America is 6 hours behind Italy, right?
Yeah.
Suddenly, now we're 5 hours behind. So all the games are pushed an hour later. We're so used to these games being played. At 6:30 on Sundays, 6:30, 9, 12, 2, and 2:45.
2:45, yeah.
Now it's 7:30, 10, 1, 3:45.
3:45.
And then the Champions League tomorrow, that's at 4.
Yeah.
That's at 4. That's pretty much in the evening. It's not even afternoon anymore.
That's it.
Why does this have to happen? Why can't we just keep it the same? Italy, you can't move your clocks ahead like us. We can't do it the whole world at once. Nah. I guess we won't have that problem anyways.
Wow.
Because Italy, I think it's the end of March too.
Every couple weeks after.
Yeah, every year it's like this where we have to adjust to this whole new. I know it's only an hour, but we create our lives around these times. Especially if you're in school, you create your schedule around 2:45,
whatever you're doing.
2:45 an hour later. You know what? I'm gonna take advantage because next week, if Juve plays that Champions League game, it's gonna be at 4. I'm gonna leave work early and I'm gonna try to get home for like 4:30. And I'll catch the rest of the game instead of, maybe watching the first half of the game at home, at work, and then not really being able to catch the rest of the game. So, yellow card to...
Daylight savings time?
No, to not everyone in the world changing to daylight savings time at once.
This is definitely going to be another yellow.
So for me, I'm giving one card this week. I'm giving a big fat red... I know it's going to bleed into our conversation with Francucci from Serie A Sitdown, but Milan going through the motions over the weekend against Genoa. Credit to Genoa, top performance by them. Got the job done on the road. And I bet our friend Fabrizio in Toronto was definitely smiling about that one, but definitely merited for them. But for me, going through the motions for Milan, no hunger. And I guess, I don't know if it was just... They hadn't played in a bit, and it was just maybe the whole shenanigans, with upper management, Boban getting sacked after 9 months, and just, I don't know if it was an accumulation of having no fans in the stadium, where they're used to having a packed crowd. Whatever the case may be, there's, for me, no excuses. Laying an egg, going through the motions for almost every player on the pitch. Obviously now we don't, as we said time and time again, we don't know where it's going to lead to, but definitely this week, red card, Milan in total.
Another red card is shown.
So you're only giving one card then?
I thought we were giving one.
Yeah.
But now you pulled up a great thing where I think we can double up on.
Okay. So I'm gonna give my red card to something else, and then you could take over and give a yellow card to that.
Sounds good. Go ahead.
So red card. So I saw a video online of Juve fans gathering outside Inter's hotel and waiting till Conte comes out, calling him an uomo di merda, bastardo, this and that.
Bunch of names.
Classic soccer banter.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't have a problem with them calling him names. We say that across the league. It's typical Italy, but it's more the fact that they're gathering when the government's specifically telling them not to gather in large crowds. Yeah. Inter fans did the same thing before the game, gathering outside the bus and chanting and stuff. And normally, obviously, these things, it's fine. But if the government's telling you to stay home and be safe and don't do large gatherings, and this is why they're playing behind closed doors, they shouldn't have done that. So I'm going to give a red card, more of a small red card, to those fans for basically disobeying the government, if you want to put it that way.
This is going to be a red card, and is that going to change the course of the game?
Okay, so you could give your yellow now.
Yeah, if I would have thought about this earlier, I might have given this the red card. But yeah, I guess I'll stick on with what you brought up. The great guys over at IFTV had posted this on their social medias, but it was basically an exchange of quotes from Conte and Fabio Capello, both via Sky. So Conte went on to say, for 8 years, Juve got better. You can't compare to us, who have been building for only 8 months. And Fabio Capello shot back saying, it's wrong for Conte to say this. It's justifying it to his players. You shouldn't say the other teams has better players. And I think, personally, I think, Capello is right. I feel Conte is, as good as of coach he is, and we've seen a lot of great things from him with the Italian national team, what he's done at Chelsea, what he's done at Juve in the past. But when things don't go according to plan or up to par with him, there's always an excuse.
Yeah.
It's not just one thing; it's another thing. Oh, we don't have. What do you when he said about Barella and Sensi? Oh, well, what do you expect from players that came from Cagliari and Sassuolo? Well, listen, those are starting national team midfielders, and B, you're starting midfielders for a historic club that in fact turned 112 today with Inter. So for Conte, I find it's always an excuse, no matter what it is. He likes to kind of put the blame on other things to kind of massage the problems.
He loves to throw his players under the bus. Simply put.
It's simply put, exactly. We've seen it time and time again. There's no really going over it. But definite yellow card for me. If I would have known, I would have switched it to my red card. But maybe a bit of both from here at the Calcio, guys. For Antonio Conte, filled with excuses.
And he now sees a flash of yellow before his eyes.
Coming up, Frank Crivello to talk some Milan next on the Calcio, guys.
Run bits, the good ball in, and there's the opening goal, and it's tucked away by Goran Pandev.
You heard it there, Pandev's opening goal in Milan Genoa, and the song you just heard was Circles from Jahzzar. And joining us now from the Serie A Sitdown is Frank Crivello. Frank, how's it going?
Doing great, guys. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. And I mean, despite the circumstances with the Serie A, we talked about it earlier in the podcast. No Serie A until April 3rd, but Milan did just play. You're a huge Milan fan yourself. 2-1 loss against Genoa. Simply said, I'll get right to it. What's going wrong with Milan now?
Well, I mean, Milan's an unfinished package on the pitch, first of all. I mean, you're playing guys like Gabbia, in the center of defense. You're shuffling things a little bit. So that's where it starts. And one of the things that I pointed out, on Serie A Sitdown yesterday, I said, if you take a look at the goals that Milan conceded in defeat, the goals were scored in between Gabbia and Andrea Conti, Milan's two least experienced defenders. Now, I mean, this is not Tassotti and Costa Curta by any stretch of the imagination, or or even Cafu and Nesta. So I think that it was smart of Genoa to be able to go ahead and exploit that and take advantage of it. But Milan overall, I think, is just an unfinished package. Everything from the fighting that's going on in the back rooms, the he said, she said there, the uncertainty at the manager. I know you're going to ask me a lot of questions about this stuff here coming up. That does trickle down to the players. And then, we get to March, we get to, the back third of the season. And for whatever reason, Milan just enjoys, or maybe doesn't enjoy, but finds a way to just drop games like this. And it's, it makes you scratch your head, because you look at the team. They're more talented than what they're doing results-wise for the most part. But, some of it is I think that they're an unfinished product in terms of putting together an 11 that's going to be able to compete regularly and be able to battle for top four. We're, I would say, at least a half a dozen players away from being able to compete with the teams that you're seeing in the top four right now. And I'm not talking about trying to win a Scudetto over Juve. I'm talking about even competing with Lazio and Atalanta and Inter. There's many things wrong with Milan. That's probably my long-winded way of saying it.
Yeah, Frank, I totally agree. I mean, the Milan fan in me is just as hurt as you are, and to see them still so far behind is a tough pill to swallow. But you did mention about upper management and the whole chaos that's going on up there. Obviously, we got the news of the Boban firing after just 9 months with the club. What do you make of that situation? Was that the right call? Are you on the whole Gazidis in, Gazidis out, rumors, or what do you make of this whole situation that's been going on with the upper management at Milan?
I think there's too many cooks in the kitchen, first of all. And you've got Gazidis is the CEO, Maldini's the technical director, Boban had a role, and you've got all of these guys. Who's really in charge is what we're trying to find out. Well, apparently Gazidis must be in charge, and must be calling the shots because he sacks Boban. For some comments that Boban had made about Gazidis, publicly criticizing him about, talking about bringing in Ralph Rangnick, to come on and be coach and director of sport. And, well, then what do Maldini and Boban do if that happens? Yeah. So it's basically been a total circus. And, it looks like Gazidis is running the show. It looks like Maldini probably will be out of there after this year. I never understood the reason to have to add Gazidis to this picture if you had already gotten Maldini and Boban working in partnership together. It confuses me, the reason for him being there. But now it seems like he's gotten some authority or some go-ahead from Elliott, to handle the future of this team, or at least it appears that way, because if it's Gazidis doing the sacking of Boban, then he's the man in charge, and that's who Elliott is trusting at this point.
And how about Pioli's future? What do you think of it? Obviously, he came in mid-season. Do you think he stays with the team next year?
No, I mean I say this because it's not because Pioli's doing a bad job. Pioli's probably been the one person that's looked good in all of this. He's just tried to manage a team and try to manage them and navigate them through a very difficult situation. I think it's astonishing. I think it's actually a miracle that Milan are sitting in 7th, considering how they started the season under Giampaolo. Where it looked like there was just no connection between Giampaolo and the players. That was evident when it was on the pitch. That was evident from game 1 against Udinese. Pioli walks into a situation, a thankless one at that, no preseason, no say-so in the players that he wants, has to go out and put a system in place, and has managed to get results and get Milan back into 7th. And within points of Napoli for 6th. So I think he's done a tremendous job. I think at the end of the day, this is a stopgap appointment with the idea that, at least Gazidis looks like he wants to be bringing on somebody here long term. Whether or not that happens, or whether it gets, I would love to see Pioli get another season. I think he's earned it just on his performance. But, the Milan are starving for a winner now. And they're starving to get back on back into continental relevance, even not just relevance with Italy. And can you do that with Stefano Pioli? Is the question. The track record says no. He had 1 year with Lazio where he got them to the Champions League many, many years ago. But he's not the guy that you're going to look at and say, yeah, that's our guy to lead this project forward. So for those reasons, I think this is a stopgap situation, although on his performance and on his merits, I think he's earned an opportunity to manage another season.
I think it's a tough situation. Like you mentioned, obviously the Giampaolo project didn't work. Pioli coming in kind of as that caretaker coach and kind of see where things take place. Obviously, this season was kind of unexpected to see where it's at right now. So there's a lot of, I think, uncertainties. But going on, I think another thing that's been very public on social media is Gazidis turning Milan into Arsenal, and I think that's a big thing that a lot of Milan fans, and I'm going to put myself in there, don't want. I don't think you can really compare, and I don't think this is something that should be done with this club. But like you said, Gazidis kind of calling the shots, and Elliott putting enough faith into him. Do you think this is kind of where the club is going to? Is that the smart move? What do you make of that?
Before you answer, Frank, I just want to say Adriano and I had a conversation with an instructor at my school in October who was an Arsenal fan himself. And when Adriano told him he was a Milan fan, first thing he said, "Oh, Gazidis, you got to watch out."
Yeah. And he's so far so right. So what do you make of that, this whole situation and those thoughts and concerns by many Milan fans across the world?
I appeared on Milan Weekly podcast about a year and a half ago, and we kicked around this topic a little bit. And I don't think at that time Gazidis was even remotely close to being in the picture.
Yeah.
And I had said that, if you're going to be an Arsenal model, what was Arsenal known for? Finishing fourth and getting to the Champions League and making a profit.
That's it.
And I wouldn't have a problem with it as long as this was a temporary step on the way to greater things. I don't want to be an Arsenal that, in the fashion that for 10 years Milan are going to finish fourth, get to the Champions League, and be profitable. Okay, I want a Milan that's going to fight for Scudettos. I want a Milan that's going to win Champions Leagues. I want a Milan that's going to get back to, what we enjoyed in the 90s and then into the 2000s. With the many legendary players that I'm accustomed to seeing wearing the red and black stripes, and not some of the players that have come from the banter era. I will say that some of the players that have come in are definitely an improvement over what we've had even 5 years ago. But as far as answering the Arsenal question, do I want that to be a permanent answer? Absolutely not. But if it's a step that gets us to consistently winning trophies and reclaiming some of that relevance, not only, as far as Italy is concerned, but as far as Europe is concerned, then I can live with it being a temporary solution. But long-term, no, don't want it at all.
If the season were to finish as it is right now, again, we don't know how the season's going to finish, but Milan would finish in 7th, just 1 point ahead of Verona and Parma, who each have a game in hand. And, if they finish in 7th, would that be an acceptable result considering everything that's gone on this year?
I think I would take it, because this team looked lost. They looked without a plan under Giampaolo. It got taken over by Pioli. They bring in a couple of pieces to help fix it. Unfortunately, Kjaer got hurt. I thought that was an excellent partner for Romagnoli when they signed him. But I think, considering the circumstances and considering where Milan were, and I mean, this was looking desperate. This would have been this, had Giampaolo stayed a lot longer than he did, this would have been this season's Fiorentina, in which Fiorentina plummeted to 15th last season. I think you would have seen a lot of this, going on with Milan under, all things considered, that the team that's just way too talented to be even close to a relegation scrum. But that's certainly the way things were looking after about the first 6 games or so of the season with the Rossoneri. To take that and come back and finish 7th, I would say you take that and hope that that's a springboard for future success. Ultimately, it's not what we want. Ultimately, it's not good optics. Milan is unrecognizable without being in Europe, in my opinion. But considering how this season started, and some of the missteps that everybody took, to rally to get to 7th is pretty good.
I mean, Frank, I think you nailed it on the head. I think, like you said, us Milan fans don't want, that type of finish. But if that's what it is, I think that's what we're just gonna have to accept. Throwing in just another question that kind of a bit of not a curveball, but just something we wanted to know. Seeing how the season has went on, 2 coaches, some players coming in, some players leaving. Who would you say are maybe, I don't know, your 3 to 5, if not less, if not more, players that have stood out for you so far this season with this Milan team? Guys that they can build on with the future, and continuing on wearing the red and black stripes.
Okay. Gigio Donnarumma, obviously. I think he's one of the best goalkeepers in the world. I think that he's had his moments this season where he's had to save Milan. He's had to help salvage points or help keep points and things like that. He's year in and year out, and I mean, it's astonishing that he's only 21. It feels like he's been playing forever, but he's got still a big time career ahead of him. Obviously, Theo Hernandez has been outstanding going forward. Some of the defensive frailties have been showing up in the last few weeks with him individually. I mean, he got exposed on the first goal against Genoa. But, his attacking, his ability to go forward, his ability to score goals from the left back position, which is, something you definitely want to, hang on to. He's obviously stood out. He's arguably been Milan's best player. I think Romagnoli's been solid again this season. There's been a couple of goals that you got to, point at and that he's got to take some responsibility for. But overall, I think he is, with each season, he's growing into your classic Italian defender. It's just hard, it's hard for non-Milan supporters to make those judgments about him because of who plays around him. And he could look bad because he's part of the entire package. But when you isolate him individually and see what he's done defensively, he's been pretty good. Certainly is, deserves the right to continue to wear the captain's armband as well. So I start with those three. I think that Ismael Benacer has played a lot better. I think it was a rocky start for him at the beginning of the season. I think a lot of silly fouls, a lot of yellow cards, a lot of uncertainty with what his role was. And I think that just getting acclimated to a new team, I think it took him a lot longer than everybody wanted. I think it also, he's one of those players that was coming over from a continental tournament too, from the Africa Cup of Nations, and needed some time to kind of get, he goes on holiday, comes back, needs some time to get his legs back under him. And I think people underestimate that sometimes. But now that he's gotten into a little bit more of a rhythm, he's gotten more acclimated with his teammates, I think he's become a better player. I think, and if we're not keeping Zlatan in this conversation because of his age and because of how long he's signed with Milan, I would say the other guy that you've got to stick with is Samu Castillejo. I think that that he's tailed off here in the last couple of games, but his work ethic and his commitment, technically strong on both of his feet. You'd like to see more goals out of him, but he can create. But it's also, I think, the thing that Milan fans love about him is his commitment. I mean, when did you ever see Suso track back defensively?
Yeah.
And that's just something that Samu Castillejo has taken care of, and something that's desperately needed because Milan right now are the right back position is a crisis. So you need that right winger, right-sided midfielder to be able to help and provide some support and help help that right fullback, in certain situations. So he does a little bit of that too. So, he certainly works tirelessly on the pitch, and I think that that's something that you've got to, find a way to keep. I think that for me, it's those five guys, and then after that, it's Ante Rebic. If you permit me to add a sixth.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's obviously popped up and scored some goals. The only thing that I get concerned about is was that just a spurt, and is he going to go back? Is he going to regress back to kind of being an average player? Because there are times when he plays with Croatia where he's the one that just looks like he's out of the picture, and you worry that sometimes can happen at Milan. But, he has stepped in and he has scored some important goals for the Rossoneri this season. If there's a way Milan can keep him too, that's fine. So I would say those six. I know you asked me for five, but, for me, I would look at those six at this point that have impressed me the most. And, if Milan can keep them and that's the baseline going forward, then that's fine. And then I will say that, and I know that this guy gets, I know I'm going on, guys, but I do want to mention Frank Kessie too, just as an honorable mention, because
Absolutely.
I think that his role is simplified now. I think in Gattuso's 4-3-3, I think a lot was asked of him that he couldn't do. Where he's trying to find his way into the penalty area when we have the ball going forward, and he's maybe taking, some of the runs that Sousa. Well, now when you've got a system where Ibrahimovic is up front, you've got a guy playing behind Ibra, you've got guys to each side of Ibra now. Kessie can play more of a holder and can play more box to box. What he's asked to do with the ball has been simplified too, and then he can win tackles. So I think that simplifying what Kessie is asked to do has made him a better player as well.
So we're gonna go to our social media questions. So kind of tying into your first player that you mentioned. This is from our friend Joseph at Calcio Fan Blogs. Do you think Donnarumma is going to stay at Milan in the summer?
I can't see why. Right now, who would be the face of Milan? And that's one of the things. If you're going to have a team that people can get behind, and if you want to, the business side of things, which we know Gazidis can be very interested in, who's the face of the team? And I think that if you play word association with a lot of people, when you say the current Milan team, most people will say Donnarumma. Now they'll say Ibrahimovic. But, he's been a constant. I want him to stay in. I'm going to dodge this question, I think, guys. I'm sorry, but I want him to stay. I think he's a talented goalkeeper. I think he, like I said, he's got a hell of a career in front of him. And it's crazy that he's already played 5 years. But if he should go, Plizzari is on the books, and he's a solid goalkeeper. He may not be the total answer. He may not be a total replacement of Donnarumma, but at a minimum, he can be serviceable. So if they got the right price for Donnarumma, go get the money. But and I might anger some Milan fans by saying that, Adriano, I don't know how you feel about it, but otherwise keep him on the books, because at the very least you need a face. You need somebody that you can associate this club with. You need somebody to market this club around. And who would it be if it's not Donnarumma? And if Ibrahimovic is not back for another season, that's where it kind of gets a little dicey.
I mean, Frank, I totally agree with you. I mean, I would definitely not want him to see him leave. Sorry. And there's many things that go around. It's like, well, what's your price for Donnarumma? What would be the amount that you would be happy with? And personally, I couldn't really answer that question. Obviously, maybe like, I don't know, 150 million, whatever the case may be, some crazy amount like that. But if I were to ask you, Frank, what's your number for Donnarumma if push comes to shove, to get him off the books and to sell him for some big cash, what would be your price?
Wow. 150 is going to be asking. I think for a goalkeeper, I think that's just going to there's nobody that's going to offer that. I'd love to get 150 million for him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Reasonably, I think he's good enough, and at 21 years old, with 5 years of experience under his belt and his shot-stopping ability, 70 to 80 is fair. Okay, probably leaning more towards 80. I would probably value him at that amount of money. Considering that he has a lot of years left, and goalkeepers can have a much, much longer shelf life too. Yeah. And they typically don't go for near that much. You usually see them going into the, maybe 30s into the 40s. I don't know a whole lot of goalkeepers that have gone for more than that. But we're talking about a guy who is going to play, if you sign him, he's going to play for at least 10 more years, maybe even 15. Goalkeepers go very, very long into their career. So I'd probably say if someone came in and offered around 80 for Donnarumma, I'd find it very hard to turn down.
And one last question before we get to our question that we ask every guest. So this is another question, by the way, from Fabrizio of Genoa Club, Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
Moving away from Milan, though, this is he asks: Is Inter not ready to defeat Juve? Is someone else able to do it?
Well, Lazio has done it, and they've done it twice this year. So,
I think he meant more in the sense of winning the Scudetto.
I think that Inter was always going to be a project with them, and it was not going to be done in the first year. And Conte's going to need more time. Now, the thing that I get worried about with Antonio Conte is that every time the window opens up, he gets crazy and he wants more players. And what does that say to the chemistry? What does that do for the chemistry of the team that you've got? And right now, for starters, he has too many midfielders. At some point, some players are going to start to get dissatisfied once all of those guys are fit. There are going to be some guys that are just going to be surplus to requirements and going to say either loan me or sell me. If you don't have a plan for me here down in the future, I don't want to be part of this. So structurally with, in terms of roster, they've probably got the best chance to unseat Juve on a consistent basis. They need time, though. Conte needs time. And if Conte can just stay with a nucleus of players and not go crazy every window, he probably gives himself a better chance. That's just my estimation. I'm intrigued by what Napoli are going to do now with Gattuso. It's, they fell into some ugly times under Ancelotti. Gattuso walked into the situation and, it was on the same parallel as Milan. It was going to get worse, and it did get worse before it got better, and now it's better. So I'm intrigued with how they continue to build that over there. They're going to have to address some pieces, certainly. I think that they did a very nice job with strengthening their midfield through guys like Deme and Lobotka. The attack has to get sorted out. Is Milik a long-term answer? Do you re-sign Mertens, or you try to get a couple more years out of Mertens because he's I think his contract is up at the end of this season. Mertens knows how to score goals in Serie A. You better figure out how to keep him around if you've got long-range plans of winning things. So that's another one that intrigues me. And, Lazio is another one. If they keep, if they don't let the European stuff be a distraction, they have a system. Lazio and Atalanta are interesting because they both have a system. They have players that buy into it relatively quickly, and they play very, very well in that system. But I think, Lazio might withstand the outside forces trying to come in and pluck their players, versus Atalanta, who are, selling their players. But the beautiful thing about Atalanta is that they're going out and they're finding the replacement, and they're finding it for cheap. And they're able to keep things, they're able to keep things moving. So I would say in this order right now, the teams that are best set: Inter just needs time, Napoli, and then you're looking at Lazio and Atalanta. I just think Roma get too mentally weak at the wrong times to be able to make that push. But then with the stadium coming in and having that extra revenue and having power to get players and do a little bit more, maybe a few years from now, my opinion will change about them. But, we run into the same thing with them every season, and the mental side of things. For some reason, they just weaken and fall apart.
Yeah, Frank, I totally agree. I mean, it should be interesting to see, what comes next, for all these teams and, the Serie A season, and who's going to officially and finally dethrone Juventus. But a question, Frank, that we ask pretty much all our guests that we have on. One that I'm pretty curious about, and I bet our thousands and thousands of listeners are as well. How you became a Milan fan? Where does that passion come from for the game of Calcio, for Milan specifically, and how that all came to be? Okay.
I've been a Milan fan now for over 30 years, thousands of fans. Good for you guys. I think we got dozens. But be that as it may, hopefully some of your thousands will come over and listen to us a little bit, get us from dozens to scores or something like that. But anyway, I've been a Milan supporter for over 30 years, pretty much ever since Berlusconi came in and took over.
Simple as that?
Sorry, Frank.
Yep.
You cut off over there.
Oh, can you hear me?
Go for it.
All right, I'll start again. I've been a Milan supporter for over 30 years. Pretty much ever since Berlusconi came onto the scene and bought Milan. I was 13 years old at the time. I was taking more of an interest in the game. World Cup was coming around the corner, in a couple of years, and it was going to be in Italy, and it was getting exciting. And I remembered having a taste of Mexico '86 and watching some of the games there. And it's like, okay, want to get a build-up, want to get familiar with these players, and, need to find a team to support. And I just started supporting Milan. It was a good bandwagon to jump on at the time. It was when Saki arrived, and it was the Dutch trio of Hullet and Rijkaard and Van Basten, and you had, what I've said just about every time I've come on one of these podcasts. I think the greatest back four there's ever been, with Tassotti, Costa Curta, Baresi, and Maldini, just an excellent team and a dominant team. Played a pressing 4-4-2 style that teams just couldn't figure out. They destroyed Real Madrid in a Champions Cup semifinal, I think 5-0, and beat Steaua Bucharest in that final 4-0. And then on into the 90s. In those days, we had to we got our games on pay-per-view. We had to buy them, and $15 here, $20 there to be able to get a match. And it's probably one of the best $15 I might have ever spent my entire life. Was the '94 Champions League final when Milan beat Barcelona 4-0 without Baresi and Costa Curta and Maldini having to deputize as a center back because he was a left back then, and playing against Barcelona with legends like Romario, Stoichkov, Johan Cruyff's dream team, and Milan just brushed him aside with ease, 4-0 under Capello. Into the 90s, things kind of hit a little bit of a snag. Juventus had some excellent teams under Lippi at the time. Milan were trying to keep it together. They qualified for some Champions Leagues, didn't do so great. They won a Scudetto in 98-99 when they had Oliver Bierhoff at forward. And And then into the 2000s when Ancelotti took over, Shevchenko joined. They bring over Rui Costa from Fiorentina. They bring over Nesta from Lazio, and they built a powerhouse to go on and win the 2003 Champions League. And those teams are winning another one in 07. 08, I got to see the derby at the San Siro with my wife. We were out on a honeymoon, and the derby, with it being a home date for Milan, happened to fall on the weekend we were going to be in Milan. So my favorite game of all time, Ronaldinho on a header from Kaká, and it was a 1-0 win for Milan. It was Mourinho's first derby. You had Zlatan, you had Balotelli, you had all of Inter's legends, you had Milan's team, and now I've suffered through the banter era, like all the other, like the modern day Milan fans, and it's been tough sledding, that's for sure. And I know we're all starving for a winner, but they're my favorite team of all sports teams that I watch. When they're on, that's 2 hours that I just set aside. Everything else stops, and I sit and I watch the match. So regardless of who it's against, and regardless of what competition it is.
Very well said, Frank.
By the way, when Adriano says 1,000 listeners, it's the Italian 1,000.
Yeah.
A bit exaggerated there.
Sure. I think we have 1,000 combined. I don't know.
Minutes of the show.
Yeah, maybe if we're lucky, Frank. But honestly, thank you very much for coming on. Just before we do let you go, where can we find you on social media and the podcast that you do?
Okay, I'm the host of Serie A Sitdown. You guys had our co-host Richard Carmen on. A matter of fact, he came out and visited you guys.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yep, earlier in the season. Yeah, he says he's the pretty one of the podcast, and he's right. I'm not gonna fight him on that. I'm not going for beautiful. I'm just going for knowledgeable.
Fair enough.
So. But we're in our fourth season, doing this, and it's been a lot of fun, and we've got a good niche of listeners, so we continue to do it. And Serie A Sitdown is on it's on Apple Podcasts and SoundCloud, where we have our own channels. It's on Stitcher, it's on Spotify. We have our own YouTube channel. Mainly a lot of videos with Richard breaking down managers' tactics, some goals of the week stuff, and things like that. So you can check us out there. I'm at FTC_21 on Twitter if you want to give me a follow. I have random musings. I sometimes just go off. I probably am a little more filterless there than I am on my podcast and than I am with you guys. So I might be more amusing there than I am on something like this. But, so check me out there. And then at Serie A Sitdown, we're on Twitter. You can find that on Twitter or Instagram. And then we also are on Facebook.
Beautiful, Frank. So once again, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
So definitely follow Frank on all those platforms. Follow us at the Calcio Guys on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook as well. Catch this podcast on all your favorite podcasting platforms, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, iHeart Radio, all the good ones. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening.
Ciao.